it's time again for Word on the Street. I am your host, Gene Fenn, and as always, I'm excited to see you. Not technically, but I'm excited that you're here, you're joining in, and I hope that you're learning something, even as I'm learning something. The best way to learn something is to have to prepare and hear God and this and that for yourself, and then you have something that God's got inside of you to pour out to other people. So we're going to jump right in. We're going to start with our first verse. But don't forget to like, subscribe, and always, always, always share this with others. Let's just get the word out. I'm not the only voice talking about God, but again, if this is blessing you, perhaps God's speaking to you about using it to bless other people. All right, our first verse. Let's get to it. Romans 1:17, the latter part says, "As the scriptures say, it is through faith that a righteous person has life." Now, this is actually the verse that, if you know your history, Martin Luther read, and it really opened up his eyes to this changing from practicing a religious life to understanding that God has called us to live by faith. In other words, a belief in Him. In fact, we have to believe that God exists. Let me share a verse that specifically says this, found in Hebrews chapter 11. "It is impossible to please God without faith." Hitting this faith theme a little bit. "Anyone who wants to come to Him, God, must believe that God exists." Got to believe that God exists, and that He rewards those who sincerely seek Him. Now, when he's talking about this seeking Him, he talks about action. We're going to talk a little bit about faith and action, okay? Faith is always this kind of ethereal thing, this mist in the clouds, and we find it difficult to make it understand, but really it's a belief. I believe something strongly. But the Bible wants to teach us that it's not just a matter of belief or faith. If we believe something strongly enough, it's going to cause us to act. We're going to step out by faith. I believe that God exists. Therefore, I am going to diligently seek Him. I'm going to hunt Him down, and I'm going to walk in a way that demonstrates, that's a visual representation. You can see it in my actions and how I change, that I truly believe in Him. And it said, without this kind of faith, without believing He exists, without believing that by my seeking after Him diligently, He's going to reward me, I can't please God. And that is some of the objective, to please God. In other words, I want to do those things He calls me to do. And if I have faith, I have that desire. So we want to jump into our main passage today, which is going to be found in James chapter 2. And we're reading from verse 17 through 26. Although we'll pass over a few, I'll just kind of describe what they say, because I want to shorten up for our time factor. But we want to talk a little bit about this faith and how it's demonstrated. There must be an action involved. All right, let's jump into verse 17. "So you see, faith by itself isn't enough." So I want to refer to this "so you see" because it's referring to something that came before. Basically, this idea that, if I'm, find somebody in need, I say, "Oh, be blessed," but I don't do something, I haven't accomplished anything. I've just made myself feel better by, oh, I've said something nice. It's kind of like really a lot of the reality of people who give money to people who are standing in the little medians of things or on whatever. They want to make themselves feel better. I know that sounds harsh, and maybe there are a few that really do it genuinely, but the truth of the matter is most of the time we give them because, oh, they're hurting, they're miserable, their life is in turmoil. I want to feel better about that, and so I give them money. But the thing is, it isn't enough. It isn't enough to have that faith. Unless it produces good deeds, unless that faith produces good deeds, it is dead and useless. Now, does that mean that, that act of giving money is not a good deed? It's a good deed. It's a good deed. But really, what is the motivation behind it? Is it a faith and a belief? Or again, is it simply, I'm making myself feel better? What I'm talking about today is a faith in God. He exists. God exists. There is a God. There is a God. I know people don't want to believe that, but most of the time, when people don't believe that, they're doing it because they don't want to surrender to the idea that there's a God, because if they do, then they also recognize that perhaps they are accountable to that same God. So they make up beliefs that are based on something else, even though everything around us, the creation, how things work, our physical being and all the intricacies of it, it just didn't happen by chance. It just didn't, okay? You can argue with me all day long. It just doesn't even make any sense whatsoever. So we have to have faith that God exists. He will reward those who want more of him, that engage him in the relationship that we're a part of now. All right, let me keep on going. Verse 18. Now, someone may argue, some people have faith, others have good deeds. But I say, how can you show me your faith if you don't have good deeds? I will show you my faith by my good deeds. So there's a little bit of an argument going on here. This one person says, well, I have faith. But the other guy's saying, well, I can't tell because you're not doing anything to demonstrate that you in fact have faith. I have faith. Okay, well, but I'm clueless. I can't see it. I'm not. You're not sharing it, not showing that there's something inside you that believes in something different than maybe what I am dealing with. Verse 19. You say you have faith, for you believe that there is one God. Good for you. Even the demons believe this, and they tremble in terror. So this belief, even Satan has a belief in God. Okay, he believes in God. He tries to get everybody else to deny it and not believe it, but he knows, and the demons that work with him know it as well. So this belief is not enough. That's what this guy's trying to say. Just believing is not enough. Just because I believe there's a God is not enough. If I really believe there's a God, what does that mean? How does it have an effect on my life? What does it require of me, you might say? All right, let's keep on going. How foolish. Can't you see that faith without good deeds is useless? Now, the next few verses, I'm not going to read them, but talks about Abraham. God called Abraham to sacrifice his son, and he believed in God, but it was his actions that showed that he really believed in God. In other words, it wasn't just lip service. It wasn't just something to say. You can have all kinds of people, I believe in God, but do they really? What kind of impact has that belief had on their life? If they're still living their life the way they want to, still living their life, right? That in the choices that they decide to make, there's no, well, God doesn't have any kind of input into it. You're not consulting him about anything. Do you really believe in God? Because if God is God, he has kind of a claim on us. We are his creation. What is he asking for us? And of course, we've shared some things like that previously, but I'm just talking about this concept of having faith demands some sort of response, some sort of action. And again, it's not about what I do earning. Abraham believed God. He acted upon that faith, that belief, and that's when God said, you are righteous. He declared him righteous because his belief caused him to act in response to God's commandment, if you will. This is what God said he needed to do. And so Abraham, because he believed in God and trusted in God, he acted in accordance to God's instructions, and that's when God declared him righteous. His deeds partnered with his faith to enable that faith to really have a dynamic life change in him. So we go on to verse 24 and we see this. So you see, we are shown to be right with God by what we do, not by faith alone. Now this gets a little bit tricky because, we think, okay, well, I'm going to do the things that God wants me to do. But see, it's also got to be based on our faith, our relationship with God as a response, so that I'm not just doing something to earn that place with God. Let me segue for just a moment to a couple other verses I want to share in Ephesians chapter 2, just to kind of clarify God's perspective on why faith is important, and it's not us earning it. All right, let's go on. Ephesians chapter 2. God saved you by his grace when you believed, and you can't take credit for this. It is a gift of God. God's grace is a gift. You believed in Jesus, if you have. You believed in Jesus, and God's grace brought life into you, restoration in relationship with him. It's not something that you did. You didn't earn it. It was a gift. Let's read the next verse. Salvation is not a reward for the good things we have done, so none of us can boast about it. I can't say somehow I've earned my place with God. That's not what happened. Rather, God gave me a gift. I heard information. I heard the truth. I heard the good news. I made a decision in faith, in belief, and I said, God, I want you in my life. And by His grace, His gift of grace, He brought salvation into our life. So it's not a matter of earning it. But again, here's the thing. I demonstrate that this is a reality in my life by the things that I do. Okay, I go to church. I read my Bible. I pray. I pay tithe to the ministry. I minister and share with people around me about the good news. There's a lot of things I do. I confess my sin. I love on people. There's just a long list of things that I do as I learn and I grow. And it's not just about learning all the rules, but I want to learn how to live this life that God has given me. This new life that's been created as I've stepped out in faith. I then allow that faith to do inside me. And God says, do such and such. And because I have faith in Him and I trust Him, that He is a rewarder of those who seek Him, that He is wanting to bless my life, I begin to act upon that. I don't just sit there and people make up all kinds of things. Well, I don't have to go to church to have a relationship with God. And the truth is, perhaps, but I'm going to say probably not, because you just tend to drift off into all kinds of segues when you're doing it on your own. God has instructed us to fellowship and congregate with one another and build each other up and encourage each other and worship together, keep each other accountable. He's have these things for a reason, but if we don't have faith in His instructions, if we don't have faith in Him, we're not going to do those things. Does that make sense? If we're not doing those things, whatever they might be, church or otherwise, we're demonstrating that we really don't have faith. What we really have is we're trying to create this religious experience for ourselves. Now it goes on to say, and just in the next verse, it talks about the story of Rahab. Rahab may not be somebody a lot of people are familiar with, but she was a prostitute that lived in the city of Jericho. God kind of proclaimed that Jericho was going to be just torn down, wiped out. She believed what God had said through the messengers, the spies, who came to check out the lay of the land, and she kept them safe by faith. But she was acting. In other words, if people had found out that she was doing this, she could have been killed by her own people. Forget about the Israelites coming across the river. But she had faith and she kept them safe. And when Jericho's walls fell and the people were wiped out, she and her family were saved. But she acted on her belief. She believed in God. She believed at what He said. And she acted upon it. She demonstrated her belief. See, if we don't demonstrate it, has anything really occurred? Have we really invited God in? Have we really engaged in that relationship? Do we really believe that God exists? Listen, if we believe that God exists, things will not stay the same. We will live differently. We will have our hearts and our minds open to what God by His Spirit is trying to say to us, whether through His Word or in prayer. What is it He's directing my life? And again, a lot of times when God speaks to us, He's speaking to areas in our life that need change, right? Our attitude, our unforgiveness, our our lusting after what other people have, all kinds of things. Desire for money. That famous verse where people think, oh, money is the root of all evil. No, it's not the money. The love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. It's this idea that it'll make us change. We want to know what God has to say about things. We want to hear His voice on the matter for direction and how we should live our life, and not simply, make those decisions on our own. Now, it's not saying that we're idiots. It's saying that we don't have all the facts all the time in what's going on around us. We need to know something beyond us so that we have some wisdom in this thing. God says if we ask for wisdom, James chapter 1, He will give it liberally, pour out on us. But we got to ask. And we ask because we believe that he's going to speak to us. We act upon our faith. And the last verse in James chapter 2, in this segment that we're going through, says this: just as the body is dead without breath, so also faith is dead without good works. So basically what it's saying is, if we're not doing something, if there's not some form of physical change, right? And I don't mean that, you grow your hair out and put new makeup on. I'm talking about how you live your life, how you respond to things. Do I lose my cool? Do I have a temper? Am I lashing out? Am I falling into depression, anxious about everything going on around me? Am I different than I was? Am I acting differently than I was? Am I believing that God exists, and I know that as I seek him, I will find him. I will come to know what I need to know. He will speak to me. He will breathe things into my spirit. I'm not just out here in limbo land trying to figure it out on my own. That God will engage me in a real relationship as I seek him. Why do I read the Bible? I want to know who he is. I want to know about him. I want to know what he has to say. So I act upon that by faith. I believe it's true, so I act upon it. I don't let it sit on my shelf gathering dust. I believe that God exists, so I spend time in prayer, opening up myself. How do I pray? You know what? I'm not saying that there's some hard, fast rule. It's about opening yourself up and just sharing your life with him and listening to what God says, whether he responds through his word or he speaks directly into your spirit. That I'm ready to listen. Because I believe he's there. I believe he's listening. I believe he's engaging. And he wants to reward. He wants to bless my life with the things that I really need. The peace that I need to have. His joy inside my life. An appreciation for the blessings. A thankful spirit. So I act on those things. I step out in those things because I believe. If I just believe and I don't do anything about it, you see, there's all kinds of people say, "Oh, I believe in God." Do they? Do they? You see, this verse would make me question that. I don't think you believe in God if God's not changing you. If you're not surrendered. Again, he's God. He's God. Why do we think somehow that we're smarter than him? Why do we sometimes think, well, I don't need to listen to him. What does he know? He knows everything. He knows you better than you know yourself. And if I believe in him, if I truly believe in him, then I want to know what he has to say. I want to know what he needs me to do. I mean, I know we struggle with it sometimes. I do. I struggle with it sometimes because I have this natural tendency to go off onto my own tangents, things I always seem to do. I recognize and go, why am I doing that again? I know it's not the right thing. And how do I know it's not the right thing? Because, one, I've seen the damage it's done, but two, he's been talking to me about it. He wants blessings in my life. He wants to reward me for seeking him, for really wanting to know what he has to say. So I'm going to act upon it. I want to live my life according to what he has to say and live it, right? Because it's not just, I believe. Like I said, the demons believe it. It's not doing them any good because they're not acting upon it. It's not changing them. And again, not acting on it to earn favor with God. You already have the favor of God. He wants you to enter into it. Because sometimes we have it, but we're the worst obstacle to its fulfillment in our life. Man, what good stuff. So excited that you joined me here on Word on the Street. Again, like, subscribe, and share, and have a blessed week.